Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the Loose Balls Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Chris, and I'm here with my co-host, Eli.
Always glad to be back. Always glad to be back.
Always good feeling to be back. Took a mini break here after the Super Bowl because had to let things develop. Had to learn about
Yep.
what's going on in the league. We're in the middle of Combine right now, right?
Yep. I know. I feel like all the talking heads kind of, blew their load as far as letting their free agent picks kind of like come to the surface, seeing what postseason's going to be looking like here, or off season rather. And I feel like we're going to have a little bit of wiggle room as far as like stuff to talk about here. So with that being said, right, we got our free agents and we got the combine here.
Yeah. Uh, Speaking of free agents, there's already one off the table. Andy Dalton has re-signed with the Panthers. Don't know if anybody was tracking that.
Oh,
I
hey,
think it's
good news
another
for the
2-year deal.
hey, good
It
news for the
was
Panthers.
Hey, shout out to Andy Dalton. Had he not gotten in a car accident, we wouldn't have known that Bryce Young had actually grown this season. Like,
That's true. That's true.
so besides that, I think the biggest name going around right now, not as a free agent, but as someone that's looking to move, is Debo Samuel,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Debo Samuel, Cooper Cup,
Oh, I forgot about
um,
Cooper.
Matthew Stafford, even,
Yeah,
and Stephon Diggs. I would say are kind of like the big ones as of right now. Yeah.
yeah. I I've been kind of following the Debo news. I had heard the last thing I heard was also sorry if you hear it because I can't hear it through my headset, but I have Gus in the room with me and he's whining because our other dog's in the other room right now. Uh, but the big news thing that I've heard is that because everybody knows the Niners want to move on from Debo in a shocking turn of events, they are getting Jack Squat for Debo. I think the best offer I've heard is a fifth round pick. That is a wild.
That's insane.
That's
Yeah,
a
that's
like
insane.
wide receiver one, first round pick or fifth round pick.
I know. That is completely undervaluing, at least the position and the need for the position right now in the league. Teams are really wide receiver hungry. Teams are really defensive line hungry right now. I mean, that's at least what they're saying in their combine interviews right now, is that a lot of teams are kind of desperate for that wide receiver position. I think just because of the injury rate that they're kind of running into right now.
Yeah. Uh,
Like, take Amon-Ra St. Brown, for example. Are we even, I mean, how healthy is he going to be this next season? Same thing with Tank Dell. These are young receivers that are going to be kind of hit or miss, and these are people that teams are counting on.
yeah, I fully agree. It's I think, which is crazy to me because I also think O line should be again for like the fourth year in a row the biggest thing that we're looking for here. The O line is struggling. Um, so I don't know. I don't see necessarily a why. Okay, sorry. I don't see a reason for like teams being like, well, we need another receiver so they can get open quicker. No, you don't need a receiver so they can get open quicker. You need a line that gives your quarterback a chance to throw the ball.
Yeah,
So
that's fair. I feel like, at least in this day and age, teams are kind of pushing that kind of responsibility off to QB and their release time.
yeah,
Being under that 3 second mark is very essential and can do a lot of compensating as far as like saving capital for the GM in that O line equation. But with these QBs that we have right now in the league, I think time of development is going to be a factor, and yeah, developing that O line is going to be pretty essential as far as predicting the successful future of a team.
yeah. We're back. You've noticed we may have moved
Yep.
a bit if you're watching the video recording. That just means that we
Yeah.
had some technical difficulties. We got it sorted. We were
Yep.
talking about O line. So
Yes.
with O lines, I still think that that's a need for a majority of the league, except for
Mhm.
the Chargers. They did well,
Yep.
and then they did I mean a few teams, but like what we talked about with the Super Bowl, the Kansas City Chiefs had
Yeah.
no O line. The Eagles have an O line and they won, and so It's just one of those things. Uh,
Mhm.
Now we're
I
coming back again, and
also think Eagles had better defensive pressure, though. You know,
that's true. But if last
right?
season was we're drafting a bunch of defensive players, then this season it should be we want the offensive guys. Um,
Mhm.
I also think, I mean, maybe it's just me, but I think that again and again teams try to moneyball. Like looking at other news that's come out this week, Zach Martin has announced his retirement from the Cowboys, which
Yep.
means now add another team to list of needy teams for linemen. All of a sudden,
Yep.
this is going to go from, well, we can moneyball this, we'll bring in someone else too. There is no one else. Like the Bears
Yeah.
moneyballed their
It,
O line and it didn't work. So you
mhm.
eventually are going to have to either waste the draft, not waste, spend the draft capital, pay them on the free agent market. Like you can't just keep going like, we'll bring in this guy or this guy was a backup, but we really think he could be a starter. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
So I get it. Everybody wants those skill positions because they're flashy. They're the ones that make the plays. You really get the fan base in from that. But sometimes you just
Mhm.
need hogs. You just need hogs down there in the trenches, absolutely doing their job. And so,
Sure. Mm.
um, yeah,
This is true. I want to say what a lot of teams are emphasizing right now is actually defensive lines, right? And so with the talks of Myles Garrett potentially being traded,
that's right. Is he traded
with
or a free
potentially
agent?
he's just in talks right now.
Hmm.
He's not necessarily a free agent, but at least I don't think so. I think he may be going into it though. Khalil Mack potentially retiring. He was just talking about that
Hmm.
either today or yesterday or something like that, which wasn't even really on anyone's radar, you know. So there's still a lot of defensive line like players that are still like kind of in the mix right now that need to be shored up. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see kind of how the line in general is going to be impacted here, especially in this off season.
Yeah, I I didn't know. Well, I knew about Miles Garrett. I didn't hear about Khalil Mack saying he's going to retire. What this
Hmm.
all stems from is that what this all leads up to is the Browns are going to go 0-16 next year.
Yeah,
They
maybe. I mean, it depends on the QB they find, you know.
even if like Aaron, what are our choices? We draft. So you get Shadur Sanders, who his dad
Mm,
has very much said, we have spoken to the teams that we will not be going to. We are going to Eli Manning
yeah,
this situation. Do not draft us. We will not go there. And you bet
interesting.
number one on that list was the Cleveland
Oh yeah.
Browns. We are
Oh
not
yeah.
going there. Anywhere
Yep.
else, not going there. That's where careers go to die.
Exactly. Yeah. It's Browns, especially right now, definitely in a tough place. I think they're in a better place right now to get a QB than they were in previous seasons. You know, just
Yeah.
coming fresh, like about to come fresh off this insanely horrendous trade with Deshaun Watson, and yeah, and needless to say, Miles Garrett, probably the individual getting them at least 5 wins every season.
Yep.
I think that's pretty comfortable to say. Um, yeah, it's not looking good for the Browns this upcoming season. But, I mean, they haven't really been known to make too many good decisions, so it'll be pretty interesting to see what they do this offseason.
Which is even worse because you know they're going to take way less than what Miles Garrett's worth.
Mm,
They're going to be like, we want several first. They're going to do the Panthers thing where it's like, we're not talking to anybody unless 3 firsts are on the table. Oh, the Niners
mhm.
offered us a second, a third, and a fifth. Done.
Well,
Let's get them out of
fine
here.
by me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. Oh, we don't want to pay our best pass rusher in the league, or one of the best in the league right now. Oh, what's that?
Mm,
The Giants called and offered us a fifth, so we don't have to pay him?
yep.
Absolutely. Let's take that deal.
What
Eh,
did they get for CMC again? Wasn't it like 2 seconds?
Yeah, it was 2 seconds, a fourth, and then a fifth the year following, or something like that. It was an awful trade. Like,
Lord.
look, I mean, I guess in hindsight it wasn't terrible because Chuba Hubbard's doing fine. You got Jonathan Brooks. You're
Yeah.
building your young
Mhm.
core, and CMC is yet to finish a season, right?
I think he was healthy not last season, but the season before. I
Was
want
it
to
the full
say for
season?
I think it was close to the full season,
Okay.
if not the full season. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean,
Mhm.
it is what it is, but I still think that this is a like they're setting themselves up for failure, and they're going to go through the same thing that the Niners are going through with, excuse me, with Devo right now. The moment everybody knows that we're moving on from this player is the moment that it becomes pretty common that yeah, we're going to sell short. Now,
Mhm.
you could shop around for a player. Like, hey, we're not necessarily set on trading this guy, but what are you looking at? Like, what could we make
Mhm.
happen here? Or we really like this, like, and you could even spin it in that way that, like, we really liked this guy. We wanted him, they wanted this, so everybody walks away happy. When you say the words, we are ready to move on, or you can go seek a trade, or I want out of here, your value has
Clements.
immediately
Yeah.
gone from anything to, hey, you know what? I'm going to give you a fifth, and if you take it now, I'm not going to spit on you on the way out. Like, that's the end of the
Yeah.
deal here. Like,
Yeah.
so,
Exactly.
I don't know. I get it. Like, players want to force their way out. That's why they'll say, like, I want out of here. Because then the fan
Mhm.
base is like, get them out of here. We don't want players that are unhappy. Or maybe fire the
Yeah.
coach or something. Like,
Mhm.
Browns are going to fire their coach. Well, they might. But
Well,
I
yeah.
think it's too early
It's hard
to
to say.
say that. But
Yeah.
there's no way that they're happy. Like, they're happy that Miles Garrett has come out and said, I want out of here.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. No. Especially being the backbone of the organization here for what 3 years now.
Something like
Like,
that, yeah.
yeah, it's tough to see. I mean, especially coming from my perspective here, a fellow Raiders fan, at least even getting wind that Max Crosby is like unpleased to be on the team is unsettling. Even though he's come out several times saying that he's comfortable on the team, wants to be on the team, wants to play for the team. Um, it just never feels good. So yeah, definitely takes some hit to the stock, at least on the player side, and yeah, it's going to also be pretty interesting how GMs kind of come up to the plate here. Last season it was a pretty good season for GMs. I want to say the worst kind of slip up was the Falcons taking up um, Michael Penix, and
I'm
even
gonna.
then that has aged well. That has aged well.
To be clear, the worst move that a GM did last season is letting Saquon Barkley walk. Let's let's stop. Let's stop this here.
Is
Yeah,
is it?
you paid Kirko. He shouldn't have a job. The GM for the Falcons gets to at least say, "Hey, yeah, we paid Kirk $100 million, and then we immediately turned around and got our QB of the future, but they
Yeah.
won well." So, all right,
Yeah, that's fair.
like
That
they
that
can at least
GM,
say,
did just set up a Super Bowl winner. That is true, no doubt. I mean, it's setting up Saquon to really prop up that team throughout that season and actually make it a competitive team and force feed their way through the postseason was pretty inspiring. But that being said, I mean, I'm not necessarily upset, or I don't think the league is upset that Saquon leaves a team like the Giants to enhance a better team.
right. But if we're talking about GM move specific, the
GM
GM move
performance, yeah.
here was we don't want to pay you. And then this man goes off and sets a record. Has is on par, should have set the record, and then he decided he didn't want to set that record. Like
Mhm.
that is the part of me where it's like, ah, yeah, that was a bad move. Like, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
He's a generational running back, and your answer is, maybe not.
yeah. And at
Like,
least the footage, at least behind the scenes there with the Giants, at least from what they showed on Hard Knocks, is like everyone was questioning whether or not Saquon would be worth holding on to, which is an absolutely absurd question to be even posing on camera. So yeah, the harebrained conversations that they had going on over there at the time is fairly surprising, but I want to say the shock and awe of the GM for the Falcons was the one that really permeated throughout time here for me.
I mean, I guess they were both weird moves because now you're paying Kirk Cousins lots of money for nothing, basically. Like he's $100 million richer because you decided you wanted to go with Michael Penix and not him.
Hmm.
Now, if Saquon had gone to a team and they didn't win the Super Bowl, yeah, you can make that argument. Yeah, he really like we were gonna ready to rebuild and move on from him. He won the Super Bowl.
That's
Yeah,
true.
he didn't do much in the Super Bowl, but he won the Super Bowl. So it's kind of like one of those things that it's like, and you got nothing for him? You're telling me you couldn't do a sign and trade? You couldn't tag him? You couldn't do any of this stuff? Your answer is, man, we don't want to pay you. Okay. Sorry about that. Gus just was whining. So don't you even start. So help me God. I'm telling your mother she's never allowed to leave during a recording again. All right. So, Saquon and the Michael Penix move were probably the two worst moves of the league.
Yep.
Anything the Browns did this season also qualifies in that category.
I would
And I think that's it. GMs that won
Yep.
would be the, I think the Cardinals won. Like, they got their coach of the future who's building a good culture there. The Niners are doing fine. Like, this is the end of an era for them. This was their window is closing.
Hey, let's give a shout out to the Commanders here. You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying?
Commanders GM. Green Bay's GM.
Yeah,
They were
big
ready.
time. Mhm.
Sorry, one more GM that failed. Jets.
Yeah, Jets.
Choosing
yeah.
letting Woody Johnson dictate who was going to get fired wasn't a good move. I mean, to be fair, the GM also got fired in that cut, but it's one of those things that it's like, yeah, maybe Aaron Rodgers wasn't the answer.
Yep.
So that's the league. Like, it is what it is. Like, you're never going to strike it rich every time, but which leads us up to now all of the GMs and the scouts are at the draft. Watch it, or the combine,
yeah.
which
Yep. I'm ready.
before we talk too much about it, I think it is highly overrated. I think that
Yeah.
Caleb Williams was the number one QB from his last season. He went to the combine, was still the number one QB, goes to the draft, number 3 QB, number 4 QB. Like, it was the number 1 overall pick, number 4 in the rookie runnings. You know who got it? Jaden Daniels, who went second? Third.
All time?
No.
He went.
In the picks, I think he was third. Because it was Drake May and...
Yeah, I think he was third. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so...
is where they were kind of ranked,
Yeah.
at the
And
time.
then the year before this, trade happens. Panthers give up DJ Moore and now Caleb Williams to get Bryce Young. And you know who does better than him? CJ Stroud. So
True.
the point is that while the combine is somewhat important, it doesn't matter as much as people think it does. Like,
Yeah.
a few players kind of make a name for themselves, like Xavier Worthy was fast, and so they got drafted in the first round. Did that translate to something? A little bit. Were there better receivers in the draft? Yeah, and they went before him. But to sit here and be like, oh yeah, I could tell that this guy's going to be a superstar from the combine is ridiculous. To tell he's going to be a superstar from his college career, ridiculous. Bo Nix, who played Joe Burrow, by the way, in college before Joe Burrow went to the NFL, has just, it is now in the league and what? Going towards in the right direction. They made the playoffs.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I would like to, push back a little bit on this little aspect here, but I do want to bring up that criticism that you pointed out there is that you can't quite make too much of analysis on someone's career in their college career. That is where Caleb got his kind of value, was his career in college. Going into the combine and going into the draft, Jaden Daniels was kind of talked up more than Caleb Williams coming into this season, just based on the stuff that he was doing later on in his career with Louisiana.
Yeah.
And so being able to kind of like parse out that kind of like small information that you don't always get is very important. And I also think there's kind of a discrepancy of like first round, first overall QB versus first round, second overall, and third overall, and eighth overall. They're all first round QBs, and it's just because of the need that the team really has, you know. But
Right, but I
I
think
think a lot of attention is kind of prodded towards it, just because there's nothing else to really report on, you know. So I feel like there's an information vacuum, kind of gets magnified, at least to like the common news consumption people out there, you know.
that's true. I I don't yeah. I get what you're saying that they're all first round picks, but when we're talking about pieces being moved, like DJ Moore was traded for uh to get Bryce Young. So you're giving up a player that for the last 2-3 years had 1,000 yard seat. Like if it was just picks, like we're pick swapping and we're giving up a pick later on, I think the pain stings a little bit less. But they banked heavy when in reality they were the second pick or something
Yeah.
like that. Like they had CJ Stroud. So I guess unless we're trading from somewhere astronomically far away, like very far back in the first round to get these quarterbacks, I think we're basing too much on the combine where teams are like, no, Bryce Young is our guy. We need to get Bryce Young. When in reality, and maybe I'm oversimplifying it in the thought process, but it feels like to me that the right coach can make a quarterback fit any system. And so, and if your quarterback can't fit the system that you're making, then he's probably not a first round quarterback.
Fair.
And so, I guess when we talk about like, and I think the problem is that there's so much now around Hard Knocks, like Hard Knocks where we and like the combine where we get all this background information, the team interviews and everything like that.
Hmm.
I think they're opening it up too much to fan input.
Okay.
Like I would compare this to like we need it's a weird comparison, but bear with me when I make it. Is that this is kind of like when the Knicks drafted Kristaps Porzingis, and the reason is nobody wanted him, but then he comes out and he's
Okay.
the best thing that came to that team in the last 5 years. And then now he's moved on and he's got a ring with Boston and stuff like that. But my point is that they didn't go with what the fan base wanted. They went with what was probably going to be the best fit for their team. And so when you get to this where now everybody can hear like, oh, are we debating Bryce Young or stuff like that? Then you're kind of opening it up that even though it's like, no, it's our GM's decision, the GM reads the messages. The GM sees the tweets where it's like, man, if I'm wrong and I'm really wrong with this, I'm going to get fired. And it's like, maybe pull it back. Like, hey, let's just all watch the combine. Don't ask the teams what they're saying. And on the other side, don't tell them what you're thinking. Just be like, yep, a lot of good players today. Thoughts on, I don't know, Shadir Sanders. He's a good quarterback. He's going to do well in the league, wherever he's at. Just
Yep.
don't tell them what you're thinking, because then you also
Yeah.
are you're painting yourself into this corner of like,
Yeah,
well,
which is kind of like a lot of the large part of the conversation is at least with these team interviews that are going on right now. The GM's going up there talking about what their needs and wants are, and a lot of it is not truthful. So like a large part of the game, at least right now, for like the talking heads is like, oh, who's telling the truth, who's not, where are their needs actually right now? You know, kind of parsing out what they saw last season and what's being kind of pushed forward right now. You know.
yeah, and I agree that that's part of like the nuances. You're using the media to kind of throw a smokescreen up, but at the same time, I don't know. Like it doesn't feel like it's a very good smokescreen because outside of I think one pick in this last draft, they pretty much nailed spot on between two players who was going to go. Like
Yeah.
That's crazy. Like, I would be terrified to be a GM, and I think, oh, what's that Kevin Costner movie that hits it on the head? It's like Draft Day. It's Draft Day.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
I would be the Jacksonville GM in Draft Day, where I'm like shitting my pants up there because everybody knows what I need, and now I'm on the
Yeah.
spot. Do I take the best player available, or do I take what I need? And then I get taken
Yeah.
advantage of by another GM. So why am I even talking about this? Why am I pointing out all the weaknesses on my team? I'm hyping them up.
True.
I could have the worst O line in the world. Nah, we're good with our guys. We're sticking with it. They're the best thing in the world. Nothing.
Yeah.
What about the other teams? Best linemen in the world. Like, everybody's getting they're the best in the game because
True.
then nobody is. Like, why? Like, and talking heads talking about it? No, you're wrong. Look at these stats. Like, I'm just pulling out all the facts to argue their point. Like, to sit here and be like, yeah, we understand we have some needs in our O-line position or we have some needs in this. Guess what? Any team that knows that you're trying to get an O-line and you're trying to jump up is going to immediately just like, yep, that's an extra pick. Like, you're setting yourself up
That's
for
fair.
failure. And I think that more so now that's going to hurt the league because it's going to overhype players that probably are not worth it, that we're basing it off this draft or basing it off the combine. Let's switch it and go back and say, like, going back to last year, Joe Alt goes at 7. And everybody's like, oh my God, a lineman taken in the top 10 is wild. Like, we didn't think that was going to happen. We thought he was going to go receiver. One of the best rookie O linemen in the league right now. That's not, whatever. Okay, that's fine. Now, if he comes out and Jim Harbaugh comes out and says, we're going to take a lineman. We need a lineman. If I'm sitting there looking at Joe Alt, guess who I'm calling? I'm calling number 6, going, hey, I want to trade up. And number 6 looking at me going, oh, you're some sucker that wants to take Joe Alt. Okay, that's extra picks. And now, all of a sudden, because that team's traded up, pick swapped, and maybe a first next year or something like that, now Joe Alt has to perform at a level that's worth 2 first-round picks or he's a bust. And again, we're all supposed to be blocking out the noise. We're all supposed to not be hearing the haters. They all read it. And you want to talk about killing someone's confidence? Not to mention, depending on the team he goes to, he's already being set up for failure. So again, it's great to talk about. We wouldn't be able to do this if we weren't talking about the combine and the draft. But what I'm saying is when we talk about it, don't listen to us very much. Like, don't harass you. Like, if you want your team to win, don't harass your GM. Don't tell them they should take XYZ player. Because they probably have a pretty good idea of what they want to take, but then when the influence starts to sway them away, it's just downhill from there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a good commentary on, the supply and demand of the players and teams,
What I'm really saying is that Shedeur Sanders is not a top 10 pick, but he's going to be because he gets so much hype around him.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah.
I don't dislike him, but he probably isn't, and I think the best way to describe it is that he's been in a homeschool program his entire career because his dad's been his coach wherever he goes.
There you go. Makes sense.
It's just my 2 cents.
That is pretty interesting, especially coming off the heels of last season, Jerry Rice's son, right? Jerry Rice has been very influential, at least of all the teams that he's been attached to. But
Yeah.
he ends up on a team, right? And
He
then he
does.
immediately gets cut. Like
No, he didn't get cut. He played the whole season.
Did he play the whole season?
He went to IR. He suited up for 3 games.
Okay.
Because guess
Wow.
who was the sucker that drafted him in one of my leagues? Me.
Oh,
And I
man.
held him in my taxi squad, and he had a whopping 2 points this entire
There
season.
you go. Wow, he had 2 points?
Yeah, he did a lot of specials team
Wow.
stuff, and then he got to go out for a couple passes when they got really injury prone. You want to talk
Wow.
about someone that's probably not going to have a solid career with the Chargers? It's probably Brendan Rice.
Probably.
He has a
Brandon
chance
Rice.
because, again, outside of Lad McConkey, the receiver core is weak.
Yep.
But if you couldn't break it in this year,
Mhm.
maybe. It's the same thing with Marvin Harrison Jr. He got
Hmm.
vastly. He's good. He's going to be fine.
Hmm.
But because of the name, because of the combine, he gets
Yep,
taken before Malik Neighbors, who is the number
that's
one
true.
receiver in the
That is
rookie
true.
receiver. Arguably top 10
Hmm.
receiver in the NFL right now.
Hmm.
But it is what it is. That's the nature of this league. Um, there is, and see, there's one here. Is it Gentry, right? The one who stands like Michael
Alex.
Myers. No,
Um,
um, Ashton.
is it? I think it starts with an A. Yeah.
Yeah, uh,
Hmm.
but he killed it in college. I'm
Yeah.
sure he's gonna kill it in the combine. I think
Hmm.
he's gonna do fine in the NFL. He might even be like CMC in the NFL.
Hmm.
But what I'm afraid of is that a team is going to reach too high for him. Because running backs, no matter how good they are now
Hmm.
going in the third round. That's it. Like it's like late second, early third is where we start to see running backs, and that's
Yeah.
just because of the nature of the position. You might be the best in the league, but then you immediately blow a knee out on a hard hit running through the pocket.
Yep.
So it and I could see someone, Tennessee,
Hmm.
who has Traje Spears and oh my goodness, the guy from the Texans. I can't remember his name right now. They're used to Tony Pollard.
Oh yeah.
I could see them making that choice. I think the only team that if they took him in the first round I would be excited for is the Commanders.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I think that hey, we've already made the playoffs. Austin Eckler's okay. Brian Robinson's okay. What if we got a stud?
Interesting.
What if we just got a stud?
Do is half of that team going past a 1 year deal? I think they had a win all scheme last year.
They did. It was the stopgap year because they're gonna figure out what worked, try and get their QB in. Uh, I mean, if I'm the
I think we're
Commanders,
going to see a really huge sophomore slump here with the Commanders.
yeah, I think so. But that's
Hmm.
the time to get a really good running back, right? Like your QB slumps, you need an RB.
Hmm.
But if they didn't, I don't really see anybody else that should reach up that he's going to improve this team in a way that it's like, yeah, we're competitors now. Um, I could see a few teams being very desperate to go, and that's what it is. It's going to
Yeah.
come down to desperation, and everybody's now talking about how we need a running back, so we have to go get a running back. Now we're drafting, now we're trading up, and now we're stuck in the spot, and it's just so. Yeah, it's just one of those things. But gonna be honest, I have watched very little of this combine, so I couldn't tell you who's doing well. I just know that this draft
Yeah.
class is going to be interesting, and I think,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to watch highlights of it when we're
Mhm.
done, but
Yeah.
I do think,
There's no competitions or anything yet. It's all just team interviews talking about needs and wants, essentially
yeah,
that and like updates on teams. So like Nick Sirianni was talking more about the controversial tush push, right? About how one, it's pretty unfair that just because they're getting good with the play, it's being taken out of the game, essentially. At least that's what the talk is.
right.
And two, that there's no data backing up that players get injured from the play. He said on his side, very few players were injured from that play, and they run that play a ton through the whole season.
Yeah, I don't see a lot of injuries. Injuries is a weird one to argue. I also
Yeah,
agree with his argument that every team can do this.
exactly. Yeah.
Every team can do this. Because it's not even illegal. Like, if we're gonna ban the tush push, we have to ban all teams being able to have their linemen just run up and bear hug a pile that stood up and pull it forward. Like,
True.
you can't like
Which
then
is
it's just,
which is going to be even harder for refs to enforce the line, especially all the stuff they already have to pay attention to as soon as the ball snaps.
right.
That's going to be ridiculous. Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm not a fan of the tush push. I think it's cheap. Like it's like it's a guaranteed first down. But On the other side of this, I think the Commanders shouldn't have been charged a touchdown for diving over the line every time. If you're gonna run the same play every time, I'm gonna dive over the line every time.
Yep.
Because Chris Jones tried lining up sideways and literally falling in to try and stop the line from moving forward, and they can't. So if the only way to stop it is going over the top, you can't give the team a touchdown if they're going to line up in that play. That should be that would be the one rule. Like, hey, on tush push plays, we're throwing out the unnecessary or whatever it is, the unfair, like you're cheating rule.
Okay, yeah.
You can keep it in the game for everything else. Still think Mike Tomlin should have been charged a touchdown, but it's just one of those things that do it. Why not? You could also, again, invest in your O-line. You could do that. No one else is stopping you from lining up your big body tight end in the backfield and shoving your quarterback forward. There's, I think, Jayden Daniels could run the tush push.
Yeah.
What's Josh Allen? Every quarterback. Like, there's not a quarterback in the league that I don't think
let's
that
be
could
frank,
fall.
every quarterback does run that play. Like, that is a play you practice in practice.
Yeah.
You know, it is a part of the game. Just because one team is doing better at it than everyone else.
Right.
I mean, get on those fundamentals. You know, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I'm also saying that defenses can block that play. That is a play that can be stopped.
It has been stopped.
Yes, it has been.
Man coverage, everybody huddles up and you just do a rugby scrum. Like, we're going to push it out.
That's how you stop it.
But, yeah, I don't think that one should be changed. I know, and we were talking about it before the pod started, another rule that they're talking about changing is bringing overtime, playoff overtime to the regular season, and I'm kind of surprised because I thought that was just a universal, like, we're doing this across. That being said, we should stop touching overtime. If we make it universal, that's fine. Leave it alone. I agree that it wasn't necessarily fair that a team gets a touchdown, wins the game. That's fine. You could argue that with me. I would be like, yeah, okay. But that's changed. You get the coin flip, first team scores, great. Other team gets a chance, you don't score, too bad. We score, we go again, it's just sudden death. Okay. If you can't stop a team from getting 2 touchdowns in a row, maybe we shouldn't win. Yeah.
Right.
Like, and if it's, they can kick a field goal to get points and put the pressure on us. Okay. What do you want me to, like, there's nothing stopping a team from every time they cross the 50 lining up in a field goal position in the regular game. Like, why not?
I'm not necessarily opposed to bringing in the OT rules of the regular season back to the postseason. You know, I don't necessarily see why we need to, quote unquote, pander to someone that believes that this is the will of a coin flip. You know, I mean, defense is just as important as the offense at the end of the day. You know,
I agree.
That's how I see it.
I agree, and in reality, the best team in the league should be the best offense and defense combined, or a combination of the two. If you can't get a stop, you probably shouldn't. I do
don't deserve to be in that position, yeah.
Right, but I do like it that it's both sides get a chance because it prevents that fluke touchdown where it's like defender slips and the guy just breaks off and it's like all over.
Derek Carr just hits like a 80-yard pass throw for who even knows why.
Or defensive lineman tears an ACL, goes down, and Derrick Henry busts off an 80-yard run. Yeah, okay, you get the touchdown, but we get a chance to score. True. Like, that's not fair. So I do like that part.
Yeah, that's a fair point, but it's like, at least in my mind, so statistically, like, still making an impact in the game that I wouldn't even really mess with it, you know, but, you know, c'est la vie. Yeah. Rule makers are the rule makers.
Yeah. Side note, saw this, was curious about your thoughts on it. Guess who's announced they might come out of retirement?
Oh, boy. I want to say Colin Kaepernick.
I don't think Colin Kaepernick ever retired, but...
That's true. Cam Newton?
I don't think Cam Newton ever retired. He talks about it every day, like, hey, put me on a team. Yeah, I'd still start in half the league, which, the more I watch it, the more I'm like, maybe not half, but I'm sure there's a few teams.
Yeah, exactly. Who is this? Who is this mystery player?
Rob Gronkowski. has talked
Oh
about coming
yeah,
out of
I heard
retirement.
about this. Yeah,
But
Peyton Manning was talking to him about it. Yeah.
not to the Patriots and not to the Bucks. He wants to go
Mhm.
back to the Denver Broncos, which means
Yep.
that the Denver Broncos would have to facilitate with a trade with the Buccaneers for him to come back. Right? He didn't finish out his contract, or did he?
Um,
I don't remember. That was a bit ago.
I don't think it really matters. Like
I
he
mean, they're
just
gonna.
like
It's
gets
gonna be like a.
bumped out. Like yeah,
Yeah, it's gonna be like a ceremonial seventh. That's
like
like, all right,
all
yeah,
of those like former Patriot players. Like I don't even know how they got their players or like where their players went or how their deals even worked. Like it just whatever they want just happened. And
yeah.
so I don't even know. You know.
But I think just as a veteran presence, he makes the team better. But statistically, he does absolutely nothing for the Broncos.
Yeah, I don't like. He is older than Travis Kelsey, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, he is older. He
There
is
and
37.
Travis Kelsey just got confirmed to have another season. So yeah, and he wasn't looking too hot, and I guarantee you Travis Kelsey is a better tight end than Rob Gronkowski. So
Hey, the article I was
yep,
reading called him the greatest tight end of all time. I didn't
I'm sure.
say it.
I'm sure.
I didn't say it.
Oh my god. I mean,
Uh,
it's crazy. I mean, like the tight end position has come so far from when he was playing. Like they you even seen all these like TikToks. Like the two plays Rob Gronkowski had was the post route and the line route, right?
Seam, yeah.
So yeah, right down the seam. Yeah. So like I don't necessarily see him being open at all whatsoever on any team in this modern era, but hey, if he wants to give it the run, I'm sure. I don't know if Sean Payton's open to it, but
No, Sean Payton is open to it. I think
he is open to
I
it.
think everybody on board is like, "Hey, you pull that trigger, we're going. We're doing this."
Oh gosh, that
I
is crazy. That is
Because who
crazy.
do they like? Again, one of the greatest tight ends of all time. It's Michael Jordan going to the Wizards. Who's really gonna? I'm not saying
It's
he's the
not
greatest.
like a whoa, 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 whoa,
I
whoa.
mean, it is. It is, if we're being honest. Because he's
Oh my
gonna go. He's
goodness.
gonna do nothing, and then they're gonna be like, "Yeah, you probably should have stayed
And
retired."
this is Michael Jordan going to the Yankees. That's what this is over here. Okay, this is crazy.
Yeah, he is. I mean, it'd be interesting to see if it plays out. I don't necessarily think. I mean, I think it'd be cool to see him in the league one more time, but he's not doing anything.
Yeah,
Like, he trots out,
he's
everybody goes nuts, he does a couple plays, and he's done.
he's a decent sports commentator. Keep him in the wheel. That's what I say.
Yeah, but I don't think he wants to. That's not
Yeah,
who he is. So
that's fair. That's fair.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, who knows? That would be crazy. I would never sign him to my team, but that's the way that goes.
all right. You want to hit a hot take and get out of here?
Oh yeah, let's hit a hot take. Hot take is Debo to the Steelers. That's my hot take.
I think that's a pretty good one. I think he's going, but all right. Hot take here: Browns go 0-16. We get another 0-16 season in the same decade. Not decade,
Mm,
same millennium. It's gonna be the Browns.
extra hot take. Extra hot take. Titans first overall is a running back.
There's no way it's a running back. They've already pretty much sold their hand that it's QB. Their coach, the Titans coach, hates Will Levis. Hates him with a passion.
I mean, I'm not saying Will Levis is starting next season, but like, you know,
I mean, I guess. I could see it. All right.
yeah.
Last one. Trying to think who would this benefit the most. I think Myles Garrett is going to be. I mean, this feels like a Steelers move to take him, but they already have such a good defense. I don't know if they're going to want to pay more for it.
Yeah.
He's going to Jacksonville. He's going to team up with Josh Allen in Jacksonville. I think that's where he
Ooh,
goes.
that'd be great.
New coach, gets Myles Garrett.
Yep.
Goes pretty good. Khalil Mack doesn't retire. Also, that's not a hot take, but that's a claim. I don't think he
Yeah,
retires.
I think he just gets. I think he's just looking for a little bit more money, but
And
I think he deserves it. I mean, good for him.
and I'm sure every player at the end of the season, when asked, "Are you thinking about retiring?" Yeah, of course I'm thinking about never going back to work again. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
That's a very
That's
real
fair.
thing. Oh, we didn't win the playoff. Whatever. I could just leave now with all my money. Like,
True. Very true. Right.
so
Too good.
yeah. All right. Well, there you got it. 0-16. Steelers are getting a bunch of players. Jacksonville gets better, and another player stays.
Yep.
So
There you go.
that's all of it from us here.
Yeah.
Till next time. We'll catch you later.
See you later.
That's it.